I bought these at an extreme bargain and probably the best projector deal I will ever find, best deal in home theater I will ever find in my life. And I'm Hello, and thank you for clicking on my home theater tour. My name is Matt, and I run a small channel here on the platform called Secondhand Home Theater, where I talk about various home theater topics and equipment and things like that. But I generally talk about used items, and not just any kind of used items, but typically older, high-end, extremely high quality used items that you can get nowadays for relative bargains, in my opinion. And that is kind of what I'm going to be showing off in my home theater tour here today. So as the name would imply, secondhand home theater, I focus on used items and secondhand items, and my entire home theater is completely furnished with secondhand items, save for just a few little things like cabling and maybe some movies here or there. But pretty much all the equipment and every major piece that you're gonna see in this video is something I bought secondhand. And I don't like to make a lot of bold statements, but I will make one here for this video. And that is that this video and this home theater tour is probably gonna be one of the most unique and interesting, at least in my opinion, home theaters that you're probably gonna see here on the platform. And that's because not only did I buy all my items used, like I said, I bought a lot of really high quality, super high end stuff that would have been really expensive at original MSRP way back 10, 15 years ago when it was first introduced, that I bought for bargain bin prices, pennies on the dollar. And if I would have bought everything here in my home theater on the equipment side at original MSRP, I would have easily spent at least $100,000 on the equipment that I have here. But I was lucky enough to find things way further down the line on the used market for less than $2,000. So everything I have here in my home theater, I spent less than $2,000 on. So this is an extreme budget home theater, but in my opinion, it punches way above its weight. And I would put this home theater up against most other home theaters you're gonna see here on YouTube, just in terms of the price to performance ratio. So with all of that out of the way, again, my name's Matt. I want to say thank you for Theater Insights to let me kind of do this home theater tour. Definitely check out my channel. It's some shameless self-promotion. I'm sure it'll be linked down below. But yeah, let's get on to the actual home theater tour for my home theater, the secondhand home theater here today. So to start with, let's talk room dimensions. So my space is approximately 17 feet long by 18 feet wide at its widest point, which more on that in a second, and approximately 7 feet tall, just over 7 feet tall, with the drop ceiling that I have here in the basement. Now, when I say 18 feet wide at its widest point, I'm talking about a weird notched cutout that I have over in this part of the home theater. So when you first walk into the front of the home theater through the door, the first like 5, 6 feet is about 4 feet further into the space than the rest of the home theater at the back of the room. So you walk in, the first 5, 6 feet, whatever it is, it comes in a few more feet, 4 feet or so into the space, and then it notches back out to that full 18-foot width that goes to the back wall. So up near the front stage where my screen is behind me, it's closer to like 14 feet wide as opposed to 18 feet wide. And so going along with that, let's talk about my actual speaker setup, because the room dimensions in the space here really dictate my speaker setup. So I am currently running a standard 5-channel surround sound setup. So I do not have Dolby Atmos. I do not even have a 7-channel setup. I run the tried and true old school 5-channel surround sound setup. So I have 3 home theater speakers. My LCRs are behind the screen here behind me. And then I have 2 rear channels on the back wall. And now I also have 4 subwoofers as well. There's 2 on the back wall, 2 on the front wall, and they are mirrored in the same spots along the 2 walls. And I will go out on a limb, as I mentioned at the start of the video, that this is going to be kind of unique with some of the items I have here. So these speakers are probably speakers you haven't really seen on YouTube. So starting with my left and right channel speakers, I have a pair of Angstrom Audio Sonata 100 speakers. They have a tweeter mid configuration on the speakers, and they are wall mountable, so they're mounted to the wall here behind my projector screen. And they are extremely detailed in the mid-range, provide enough kind of low end for what you're going to expect out of a speaker like this and in a home theater setup. So they're just really good, solid left and right channel speakers. Now, my center channel is also another little bit different speaker, something you don't see quite that often here on YouTube. And it is an old school speaker. This is from like 1999 or 2000, sometime in that time frame. And this is a Yamo THX LCR1 speaker. And it's also an on-wall speaker. And it is set up in a woofer, mid-range tweeter, mid-range woofer configuration. So it's a three-way speaker. And honestly, this speaker is even better than my Angstrom audio speakers. Both female and male voices in the different octave ranges are extremely clear and extremely full without being bloated on the high end or the low end. And action and other kind of sounds that would come through the center channel are just extremely rich and extremely detailed. And if I could really have my way and find two more of these Yamo LCR speakers, I would definitely do it and put them as my left and right speaker. So I would have the full front stage, as the Yamo LCR speakers, because they are truly, truly a home theater cinema speaker. And they're really nice, in my opinion. And like I said, probably something you don't see very often here on YouTube. While we're up here at the front of the stage, let's also talk very briefly about my subwoofers. If I had one major kind of upgrade I would need to make, or that I want to make in my surround sound setup, it would be the subwoofers. I have 4 Polk Audio PSW 108 subwoofers. They do not dig very deep. They do not have a whole lot of impact. They're adequate enough for my setup and fill my space well enough. It's okay enough for what it is. But if I had it my way, I would definitely upgrade these subs if I could find some bigger, better, more dedicated home theater subwoofers to replace them with, because I do feel like the bass is lacking in some regards, just in terms of how deep the bass can get and just the overall impact of the bass. Now that covers the front stage. Let's go over really quick to the back of my space and talk about my 2 rear channels. These are pro-level commercial JBL speakers. These are the JBL 8340As, and these are truly endgame level surround sound speakers for me. I have wanted to have these speakers in a home theater for a long, long time. And these speakers were the type of speakers you would have seen in most commercial theaters from really about the early 90s up through probably the early 2010s. Outside of some very specialized like IMAX and other type of theaters, a lot of just generalized commercial theaters would have had some version of these JBL speakers, one of the different models. These are the 8340s, but they had various other models of the time period that look like this. But yeah, these are extreme endgame level items for me. They are clear, they are very easy to drive because they're such high sensitivity. They don't dig super low, but they can get down to like about 50, 60 hertz if you wanted to run them that way. They are true commercial theater sounding speakers, so when you want actual commercial grade home theater audio here, just go and get commercial speakers. They are just as good, and they can be found for really a good bargain online. Sometimes you can get them for about $100 a pair. I was able to find these for $70 a pair off of Facebook Marketplace. So these are some of my favorite speakers I have here in my home theater, just because they are genuine commercial home theater speakers that were from a commercial cinema prior to getting here to my home theater. But I do also want to mention on the sound side of things, room treatments, because I don't have a whole lot. You will see I do have a good portion of my ceiling here covered in acoustic paneling. It's not the greatest stuff, it's just stuff off of Amazon. And then I also have some sound panels, kind of just very cheap stuff, put up on my left wall of the space. And my right side of the space has all of my media collection and all my equipment and everything. And it actually retains and kind of keeps the audio in and diffuses the audio pretty well for what it is. But that would be something else that would probably be a little bit better, is to get some more dedicated home theater acoustic pads and panels to put up. But for what I have right now, my ceiling and my left wall that have the treatments do really well. And then also my seating and everything else kind of does absorb sound. So that's really it for the sound side of things until we get to the equipment. Let's now talk about, really, in my opinion, what is the big kind of draw to this home theater, and that is the projector screen and the projection setup. We'll talk about the screen in a minute, but let's talk about the actual projectors. So as you can see kind of behind me and to the side here, I run 2 projectors here in my home theater. And the reason for that is I have one critical viewing projector. That's this big one right here that I'll talk about in a second. And then I have what I call like a daily driver that is for non-critical viewing. And that is this projector right here. Now, these two projectors are extremely high-end and high quality in my opinion. And the bulk of my $100,000 estimation that I would have spent on original MSRP for this home theater, the bulk of that comes from these two projectors, because combined, these two projectors would have cost somewhere in the range of like 85 to 90,000 of that $100,000 setup that I mentioned at the start of the video. So now let's talk about these two projectors. So starting first, let's talk about my daily driver, which is this Sim2 MECO 50 projector. This is a very special MECO 50. This is not a stock MECO 50. This is a kind of an upgraded special edition, one that you will probably never find anywhere else. Not just here on YouTube, but really anywhere else in the world. I mean, maybe like one or two other models like this exist, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. But this is a Sim2 MECO 50. It is a single chip DLP projector, so it only has one DLP chip. So there is a small chance for rainbow effect, but nowhere near what you would get with some lower end projectors. But this has an LED based light source. So it has 3 LED chips that provide the color and the image for the actual projector. Colors are extremely vivid and saturated. Motion is extremely fluid with heavy moving kind of traffic along the screen. Rainbow effect is present slightly, but it's in extreme kind of rare cases for rainbow effect. But the big reason this is special is not only does it have upgraded LEDs in there. So the guy that I bought this from originally at the start of this year, 2025, he actually upgraded the LEDs. So he put brand new LED chips into this projector that actually help increase lumen output past what it originally was spec'd at, and it increases the actual vividness and kind of like color palette that it can reproduce, because the LEDs are much more advanced now than they were when this came out back in like 2009, 2010. So not only is it special in that regard, it's also special because of the lens. Because this is not a stock lens that is on this projector. It is actually a retrofitted Barco projector lens that is extremely high quality, that is way, way better than the stock lenses you would have gotten on this projector originally. So it provides an extremely detailed image, much better throw ratio and zoom functionality and screen shift and everything for the image. It is just a much, much higher end projector lens than what you would have gotten. And both of those upgrades were done by the guy I bought this projector from. He did all that before I bought the projectors. In and of itself, this is an extremely high quality projector. This one would have run you somewhere around $25,000 originally at MSRP if you would have bought this, at its release date back in like 2009, 2010. So this is an extreme high-end end game level projector for me. But it's my daily driver. It's not even the best projector I've ever had here in my home theater. That is going to be the projector that's to the right of it over here. And that is also a Sim2 projector. This is a Sim2 HT5000 projector. And I can honestly say this is the best projector I have ever seen in my home theater, really in my life in terms of home theater projectors. This would punch way above its weight in comparison to modern day projectors. And that is because this is a true enthusiast level projector. This thing, when it first came out, was $55,000. And with this specialized lens, this is a special short zoom, high brightness lens that's on here. That lens would have cost somewhere in the range of like $6,000 to $8,000 when it first came out. All told, this is like a $65,000 projector in the setup that you have here. Now this projector is a little bit different than the MECO. So this is a 3-chip DLP. So that means it has 3 individual DLP chips for each one of the primary colors, but it is a lamp-based projector. So it doesn't use LEDs, it uses a standard lamp. So being 3-chip, that means that you have no rainbow effect, and motion is extremely smooth, colors are rich, and this is the same style of projector that up until more recent times with kind of like laser projection and things in the commercial space, this would have been what you had seen in a commercial theater, a 3-chip lamp-based DLP projector. And so this gives a very vivid cinematic image on the screen. This is a beast of a projector. It weighs over 100 pounds and it sits about 3.5 feet long with this lens that's on here. So this is for the true enthusiast. You cannot just grab a projector like this and throw it anywhere in your space. You have to have a dedicated home theater to run something like this. With all that being said, with its weight and its size and its heft and having to find a space to put it, this is far and away the best projector I have ever had in my home theater. This is a true endgame level projector. I mean, really both of these are, but this Sim2 HT5000 is a true endgame level projector, and this is my critical viewing projector. So whenever I'm watching something critically, whether it's a film or a TV show or something where I want to have the most immersion, the best possible image quality, I use this. And I kind of temper it with how I use it with my daily driver just because of the lamps. The lamps are not easy to find nowadays. They are extremely expensive for this type of projector. So I really try and limit how many hours I put on that. And the bulk of my use will be on my Sim2 Miko, because since it is LED based, that projector can run for tens of thousands of hours before the LEDs will dim to where it's unusable. So I would much rather put hours on that. But overall, to wrap up this part with my projectors, HT5000, best projector I've ever had. The Sim2 Miko is also an endgame level projector, extremely good for what it is. And like I said, both of these projectors combined would equal somewhere around like $85,000, $90,000 at original MSRP. And I bought them for $100 a piece. That's the last bit of information I'll leave you with. I bought these at an extreme bargain, and probably the best projector deal I will ever find, best deal in home theater I will ever find in my life. And I'm truly thankful for finding that deal, because these are endgame level projectors and they're truly immersive for me here in my home theater. Now, going along with that, let's flip around and talk about the actual projector screen that they're projecting onto. So this is a 128.5-inch 16:9 projector screen. And this is a DIY screen that I built myself by hand with some 1x4s. And the material is just some spandex that I bought from Jo-Ann Fabric earlier this year when they were going out of business. Now the screen has 2 layers of spandex. It has a black layer behind a white layer of spandex. You can go out and buy some really high-end projector screens, and unless you have a very specific need for a certain type of material or a certain setup, say with like a motorized screen that drops down that maybe is tensioned or something, if you're wanting just a standard fixed frame projector screen, I say go DIY, that is your best bet for the price to performance ratio. And that's exactly what I did. Now you may also wonder, why is it 128.5 inches? That seems like an odd kind of number to have for a screen size. And it is, but the main reasons for that, there's 2 of them. One is simple math for the cuts that I had to make on the lumber. It just comes out to easy whole numbers. You don't have to do fractions to get everything set up because it's 16:9. Makes everything nice and neat and easy to cut. But also, this legitimately is the biggest size screen that I can fit in my space on this wall for my room size, where I don't have people's heads getting kind of blocked and cropping into the image. This is legitimately, I measured, the biggest screen I can put in here. And one other thing I will mention about the screen is that it does kind of sit out about 6 inches away from the wall. I built a frame kind of box to build before I put the screen up there, and I could mount the screen to it. That's just so I could have the space to put my speakers behind the screen, because my speakers are all about 6 inches or so in thickness. And so I needed to bring the screen out a little bit so that I could have the speakers there without them pressing and pushing against the material. And so it worked out really well. I just used some 2x4s and some lumber I had lying around to build kind of like a box to bring it out about 6 inches. So that basically wraps up this side of things. Let's now go over and talk really quickly about all the components I have here in my home theater. One thing you'll notice if you go and actually look at my channel and some of my content I have there, I'm not only a big fan of older kind of high-end technology in terms of like speakers and projectors and stuff like that. I enjoy the equipment and component side of things like that too, and some legacy kind of components. And so my component setup here is a mix of more modern components and some older components. So starting with the legacy components, the first thing I have is just an old school early 2000s RCA VCR. And the reason I have this is to watch VHS tapes, obviously. But the main reason I have this specific one, outside of it working with my Logitech Harmony, is that this is a hi-fi stereo VCR. So that means I can get Dolby Pro Logic hi-fi stereo audio tracks on VHS tapes that have that. So that is the reason I have this here. Right underneath it, I also have a Laserdisc player. And not just any Laserdisc player, this is an AC3 Laserdisc player. This is a CDL D505 Pioneer Laserdisc player that originally was made for karaoke, but since it does have the RF AC3 output, I can get AC3 audio, which AC3 audio is the precursor to modern Dolby Digital surround sound mixes. This was the original home theater version of Dolby Digital. And the reason I have this and the reason I like this is because a lot of original Laserdiscs that have these Dolby Digital AC3 tracks have original theatrical audio mixes before they were modified for home use. So it's really nice to have something like this. And Laserdisc players are kind of a niche product. They've, I think, had a little bit more of a resurgence kind of modernly, but they are still a niche product and they're hard to find. And it's hard to get ones that are actual like working units that don't need repairs and find them at a pretty decent price, because normally the prices are extremely expensive on stuff like this. But I do have that player here in my setup. Now, one other thing you will need to get the AC3 audio is a decoder or a demodulator, and I have one of those in my setup as well. I have a Marantz DP870 decoder. And what that will do is it'll take the RF AC3 signal out of the actual Laserdisc player and then decode it and separate it into 6 line level outputs. So it'll give you your full 5-channel speaker layout and your subwoofer LFE channel in RCA plug form that you can then plug into a 7 or 5-channel input on either a power amplifier or receiver, processor, whatever you're running. So you need one of those. So I have one of those here in my setup as well for the AC3 audio. Now moving on from that, one other piece of more legacy equipment that's a little more modern that I do have, and honestly something I may end up removing from the rack here because it hardly gets any use, is I do have a Toshiba HD A2 HD DVD player. It's a nice player for what it is. It's actually only a 720 model. It's not even 1080. I used to use it way more, but now that I have Laserdisc in my VCR and stuff, the HD DVDs hardly ever get used, so that may end up being removed from the chain here eventually, but for right now it is here on the rack. Now I also run more modern equipment in my setup as well. So I do have, for all my streaming kind of services, an Apple TV 4K. It's just a very basic first gen Apple TV 4K, and I handle all my kind of streaming services with that, your Amazon Primes and whatever. Next to that, I do have a Panasonic UB420. And the main reason for that is that you can still watch UHDs and get really high quality, UHD 4K quality out of those discs if you have a player that has really good tone mapping and scaling options to scale the HDR 4K signal down to SDR 1080p. And the Panasonic UB420 and its big brothers are some of the best players on the market for that. And so that is why I have the Panasonic UB420 and a handful of 4K discs, is that I can still watch those high quality 4K UHDs on my 1080p displays by using the dynamic kind of tone mapping to bring it down to 1080p SDR, and it looks really good here in my home theater. So that is the reason I have that. Moving on to my main driver for disc-based media, I have another kind of odd piece of equipment here that you may not see anywhere else here on YouTube or around the internet, and that is a Blu-ray player. It is a Cambridge Audio 752BD Blu-ray player. But this player is unique because it's made by Cambridge Audio, but it more or less is the same player as an Oppo Blu-ray player, which is considered some of the more premium, sought-after Blu-ray and 4K players modernly, even today. And so it has the same components of, I believe it's like the BDP 103 from Oppo. I think that's the one that it shares the components with. But it's basically that same exact player, just modified slightly by Cambridge Audio to include Wolfson DACs for the audio side of things, and a little bit different video processing that's in there. But more or less, the components are all basically the same. So it's an extremely high quality Blu-ray player. It upscales DVDs really well, as well there. So it's my daily driver for DVD and Blu-ray content. Really, I only use my Panasonic player just for 4K discs. That's the only thing I use on it. Anything else that I'm using on a daily basis, DVDs or Blu-rays, goes through my Cambridge audio player. Now moving on to the main hub of everything here is a Marantz AV7005 AV processor. This is the brains of everything for my setup. All my components run through the processor there, and that's where I have everything set up for my crossover settings for my speakers and all my input settings and everything for all my components. It's a really solid AV processor, a little bit older like everything else I have here, but it does a solid job with everything that I ask it to do here in my home theater. And then right underneath that is the kind of power supply for all my speakers. This is an old school THX Kenwood amplifier. This is a Kenwood KMX1. It's old school THX certified from the mid 90s. It does say, I think online if you search this, something like 100 watts a channel, which is more than enough for my space that I have here to fill this space up. But it really puts out more than that. If you look at reviews at the time, it probably pushes more of like 150 to maybe closer to peaking out at like 200 watts a channel. So it is definitely more than enough for what I need here in my home theater. Now, if I were to expand out to a bigger surround sound setup, I would need another amp just because this is only 6 channel, it's 5 bed layers, and it does have a unpowered line level subwoofer output on it, which I don't use because all my subs are powered. But if I were to expand past 5 channels here in the home theater, I would need something else. But for right now, this is definitely good enough for me. Now, I do also want to mention just the last few bits of components here are my like power conditioners and stuff, because I have 3 of them here in my setup. I have 2 Monster Power power conditioners here on this rack that handle all of these components. One is an HTS 2600, the other one is an HDP 1800. They handle everything over on this rack. But then I also have a Panamax power conditioner that's on the rack with my projectors that handles the power for my projectors. I have that on a dedicated circuit and on a dedicated power conditioner just to make sure there's no unnecessary damage or problems that could occur to those, you know, with lightning strikes or something. I want to make sure those are taken care of. But yeah, that pretty much covers everything with the equipment and stuff here. You may see up in the corner, I do have an old school turntable, a couple of video game consoles and stuff. I don't really use that that much anymore here in the home theater, but I do have it here. I also have just different decor and some different items. I'm not really going to get into a lot of it. I have some homemade theater signs that I had a friend of the family make. I have a popcorn maker and concession stand. I have some movie posters and stuff that are here. A movie poster of The Predator that I got from an actual commercial theater. I have Friday the 13th kind of like marathon poster from our local drive-in from a few years ago that I had made. And a lot of different things. I have a actual dedicated poster light box outside the front door down at the bottom of the stairwell for my home theater. That's all cool stuff. It's all stuff I don't really want to talk too much about in this video. I don't want this video to drag on too long. I'm sure it's gone on quite a bit already. And so with that, that's probably going to end everything here today. So I just want to say thank you guys for giving me the time to show you around my home theater. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you saw some kind of unique stuff that's here that you don't find on the internet or around YouTube all that often. And with that, I hope to see you again soon, and hopefully you guys check out my channel. And with that, I'll see you then. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.